Hello everybody. Today I've been kind of excited about the idea of drying flowers. I don't and haven't ever worked with drying flowers before, so I hear this is fabulous. So I wanted to do a small project drying flowers. So I've read the instructions, which is using the silica gel. I'm going to put this on fast motion, but I'm just going to show you how I put the flowers in the gel, and we're going to let them sit, and then we'll come back after the allotted amount of time and see how well they did and put them in a project and see how well it turns out. So this is kind of a different thing and different thing for me to do, and I'm hoping it'll be as neat as I think it's going to be. So I'm going to be drying some roses, and I got 3 little roses because most of my molds are small. So I wanted to have 3 flowers just in case, I mess it up. And I'll have, more than one shot at getting a good dried flower from this process. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on time lapse. And now, according to this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those flowers and separate them as much as I can, and then I'm going to put silica gel in the bottom of this container, and then I'm going to slowly pour in the silicone so that it encapsulates the flowers, and then it should take 2 to 7 days to check. So this will be, and it does have microwave directions, but I want to try it this way first. And this is supposed to be reusable, so it looks like we could actually end up trying it the microwave once I'm done doing this. So I'll go ahead and put it on fast forward, or time lapse, sorry. Okay, it's been a week, so let's check on our little roses. I'm trying to dump out, so that the hefty part of the sand, the weight of the sand went in before the roses. Oh my gosh, guys, they're gorgeous. Look at that. It looks completely as if it's still 100%. I have gloves on because of the silicone beads. Shake these off real quick. I can't believe how beautiful these are. Look at that. Okay. I should be able to believe I've seen, but okay. So here's our 3 dried, and super impressed. Now this silicone flower drying formula, silica gel crystals, it's supposed to be reusable. So and it has a Ziploc bag, but the reason I used this one is because it would be easier to maneuver this. So this means that I could turn right back around and use this again. So I'm kind of excited. I have never really done flowers in resin because I like how they look, without being flattened. And so I never did it because I didn't want to have to flatten out the roses. So this was a really good example of how beautiful they could be. So we're going to do that. We're going to go ahead. I'm touching them and they still feel a little bit velvety, but they're definitely dry. Completely dry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of pluck off the things that I don't want going inside my resin project. And then I'm going to mix up resin. And so I haven't done that yet. That's why I'm talking, or I don't have my mask on. So what I'm going to do is in order for me to get the 100% pure gloss resin that you would want to use, I'm going to be using a deep pour resin that is actually meant for a 7-day cure. So the reason that these work so well when it comes to bubbles, I'm going to be using this brand right here. And again, I'm not affiliated with them. This was an experiment. So working through the best possible way to do bubble-free resin on a ball or a globe. It turns out that I have had the most success with using this type of resin. So it's going to take another 7 days to cure this. So I'm going to go ahead and mix the resin and then show you the process I use. We're going to be putting it inside a globe. So this is why I chose these tiny little roses, is because I wanted to be able to fit the rose in. And then once it's inside the ball, the other thing you learn about that is the ball has a reflective quality to it. So here's an example. This little ball in there is actually really tiny, but look how big it looks once it's inside. So that's why I found the smallest roses I could find, so that when we get this rose in there, let's see. I'm kind of curious to see if it's going to be too magnified. This resin, or this mold, is an 8-ounce ball, so I'm going to put the rose in with 7 ounces, and then come back and put in like a color base layer, maybe put in some embellishments for the last part of the ball. But I don't want the ball to be perfectly round, and this does make her perfectly round. I want it to be able to sit there like this. So this was my experiment to kind of get an idea of what I maybe should or shouldn't be putting in. So I think my biggest challenge is going to be bubbles around the roses. So we're going to pour the resin in with the rose in there and move it around and see if we can make a difference. But otherwise, I still think it'll be pretty no matter what. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up my resin.
One thing I did do to each of these roses before I put them in the resin was you can see the hair dryer sitting on the countertop over on the side there. It looks like a little wand. I did go ahead and use the hair dryer to blow out as much of those little silicone beads as possible, so that when the flowers are turned upside down, when you put them inside the globe, none of that silica gel would end up inside the resin. So the little hair dryer just blew them out really pretty easy. So here I've poured my resin in, and then I am taking some toothpicks so that I can kind of prop the rose at the top of the mold, because I didn't want to drop the rose inside. I wanted it to be sitting in a certain spot, so have a deliberate spot inside the globe when it's finished. This is the paperweight half. So I have a globe, and then I have the half paperweight. And since I was doing the globe and I have 3 roses, I decided to go ahead and try do it both ways. Do a half paperweight and a globe. These are little pearls, and I've used these pearls usually as little stars or planets in my projects, but this was an opportunity to use those big ones, those big pearls that I don't typically have space for when I'm making little planets. And I thought it was interesting that these beads are those little pearls actually float inside the resin. Since I had time to wait for the other for the resin to cure, I went and got the exact same little 3 red roses so that I could use this silica gel inside the microwave. So I was kind of looking forward to giving this a try because I had never heard of this before, so it's kind of cool. So I did the exact same thing. I put the silica gel in the bottom of the container. I added my roses, and then I made sure that they were separated and covered them with the gel, and then I put them in the microwave for 3 minutes. This gel is really light, and you do have to be careful when you're taking the flowers out because it does get everywhere. So keep my little vacuum on hand so that I could clean up the little mess. But I also used gloves because the gel made my hands itch, but some people are allergic to those types of things. So just remember to exercise safety when using any type of item or product like this. As you can see, so in 3 minutes, these dried just as perfectly as the 7 days sitting inside the silica. I thought it was amazing. And again, I did once I got them out, I took the hair dryer and I carefully blew as much of the silica beads out of the rose as possible before I put them in the resin. For this part of the video, I was going to show you real quick how I got this resin so clear. And if any of you all are interested in me doing a video specifically on this, let me know. I wasn't sure who all would be interested. So I wanted to play with the roses in a couple different ways. And so I spent some time figuring out how to make how to make the resin have no bubbles in it. So after some research, I had found that a vacuum pump, and this is a vacuum pump, works really well in getting bubbles out of resin. So the vacuum pump I think they're about $150, and they come with the little chamber. You put the resin cup inside, and then you turn on the vacuum, and it does an instant seal, and the resin's inside, and as you can see, all the bubbles come to the top. Now this is time lapse, so the bubbles come up to the top, and this is over about 20 minutes worth of time of it sitting in there. And since this was a of resin that's not supposed to cure for days and days, it actually works really well with this type of resin, which is why I ended up discovering that this kind of resin works much better. So for anybody who's interested in me doing a video on that vacuum chamber, give me a comment and let me know. And then here we are. I typically end up doing more than one layer when I do resin, and I wanted these roses to look like they were submerged in some beautiful sparkly white. So I'm using some Color Art Chantilly lace prism pour, And before I pour that in, because I mixed that into the resin, I went ahead and added these little food sprinkles. They're like pearl food sprinkles, and they look really cute and are pretty sitting in the bottom. So all I did was add some of those little pearls, and then I added in this resin mixed with the Chantilly lace prism pour, which is one of my favorites. It has an opalescent sparkle to it. As you can see, I did leave these leaves, you know, poking up out of the bottom of the project, because my thought from the beginning was that I would just sand those out because I wanted the roses to look a little bit sunk. So it actually works out really well. So the other side of this would be if you wanted to dry flowers and then pour the resin into the flowers instead of upside down, which is how the other two are. So I thought I would go ahead and show how you have to work with it a little bit more when you're pouring them in from the top. So it's actually, you would think it would be easier, but it isn't. So I mixed some resin and I poured it in, and then I slowly worked around with a toothpick each of the roses to try and get the bubbles, the air to come up from inside of the rose itself. And it works really well. The bubbles come up, and as you can see, I'm kind of popping them as they come up, but it does take a little bit more time and energy to make sure that the resin gets inside them for whatever reason. When they're upside down, it works perfectly fine. So the reason that I decided to come back and check the next day is because those pearls kept floating. So if you didn't have the pearls in it, I would not have come back to check on this because I had spent so much time making sure the bubbles were popped. So as you can see, the resin is still pretty gooey because it's the deep pour, which takes a little bit longer to cure. So here, all I'm doing here is poking these pearls down inside the resin. And I think I should have come back a little bit sooner because it caused some bubbles to appear from the fact that I was messing with it with a toothpick. So I got my heat gun out and I heated up the resin just a little bit to pop those bubbles that I had actually made just now. And then it helped me actually push those pearls down inside the project a little bit better. And it worked really well, but I didn't spend a lot of time with the heat gun. So doing a quick recap, I have, before we do some final photos, I didn't spend a whole lot of time in the video explaining this big giant flowers or set of flowers because I wanted to put a bunch of roses inside the bin to see how many of these would dry really nice. And I definitely learned that they have to all be separate and submerged inside the gel. So I'll put like a little picture up in the corner to show you that unless you have a lot of this stuff, you're only going to want to do, you know, a
a half a dozen of these at a time, but they still turned out really beautiful. So I put the ones inside the resin that turned out, and then the ones that were not completely submerged in the resin definitely did have a little bit of that, they browned a little bit on the edges. So this gel is really awesome. Just follow the instructions and you will definitely have a great result. So I wanted to, I did put a layer of the same sparkle on the bottom. I put it in the mold, and then I let it get soft, so it was probably 12 hours, and then I kind of shoved the roses in there inside that thick resin, because it had thickened, so that they would kind of sit in place. And then after that cured, that's when I came in and added in the clear. So that's how this one was handled. I also did multiple experiments on these just to Cheddar says hi. He's knocking things down over there. I hear you. Are you ready to say hi? Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, dude. We aren't mixing resin today, so that's why he's in here. Sorry about that. Okay, so this was the both of these are the two sets of roses that you saw me drying. This one was the original 7 days inside the resin, but the resin is yellow, and that was because I learned that old resin the old resin turns yellow, and it was yellow when I mixed it, but I thought maybe if I mixed some old resin it would kind of correct itself, and it did not. So the curing agent on this resin had turned yellow. So once this happened, I stopped and I ordered the same resin, and it was fresh and clear. So these are the fresh clear resin. So just to give you an idea of why I didn't really spend a whole lot of time showing this, because I kind of learned some things as I was doing it. Also, the first go around, I put the beautiful little pearl beads in, or pearl the food sprinkles in, at the same time as I put in these little pearls. These pearls floated in the resin, and as you can see, the sprinkles sunk because you do it this way. So in the second go around, I waited for this first layer to cure before I put in and so it's quite a different look if you see the beads at the bottom. So just as an FYI, I kind of learned a lesson on a couple different lessons when I was doing my experiments to get a nice clear resin. And this resin is clear. It just was ruined from having been too old. So these actually turned out really nice, except for the couple beads, and you can't really see them that well because of that yellowy resin. So this set, and this was the microwaved roses, which turned out just as beautiful as the drying them for 7 days. So also in the video you'll see that I did allow these to poke up, and then I took a sander and I sanded them flat. And the reason I let it poke up was because I wanted the rose to seem a little bit submerged in the sparkle, and I knew I was going to sand it. And then what you can do for something like this is either go ahead and put a cork bottom on it to make it a paperweight with a cork bottom, or if you don't care how it looks, you can put some of the little rubber bumpers on the bottom, or you can even take a thin layer of white resin and just do a thin layer and let that cure. So I also sanded the bottom of this too. So for this, I would probably just cut a circle out and place the little circle in there, just for the aesthetic reason, because I know it looks like this on the bottom. But as you can see, I mean, they turned out really nice. So I kind of wanted to talk about it just a little bit so you knew. I had kind of learned some lessons on how the resin cured, getting all the bubbles out, and that these little sprinkles sink when the big pearls don't. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but I really enjoyed playing with this silica gel because I had thought about wanting to do like taking a rose from somebody's wedding bouquet and making
a globe for them, you know, as a keepsake. And now I know how successful that would be if I did do that. And so anyway, for those of you who tuned in, I really appreciate you watching my channel. If you would, you can help me out by liking this video, hitting that subscribe button, and I will see you next time, and have a great day. I want to say thank you to all my channel members. For anybody who is a member of the channel, they get early release to all of my tutorials before they come out. If you don't want to be a member and you want to help me out and you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe, and hit that bell, and you will get notifications for any new videos I have coming out. And thank you for watching today, and we'll see you next time.